Welcome everybody. My name is Anya Aleman. I'm the Innovation Director at Ascender. If this is your first time at Ascender event, welcome. We're really happy that you're here. If this is, one of many events that you have attended with us, both in person and also virtually since March, welcome back. It's nice to have you back, and thank you so much for being here as well. If you don't know that much about Ascender, I'm just gonna quickly give you a summary about our organization, what we do, and what we stand for. Ascender is Pittsburgh Community for Entrepreneurs. It offers educational programs, mentorship, expert coaching, business incubation, and also we have a collaborative workspace located in East Liberty in the east end of Pittsburgh. Today's Real Talk with Founders is part of our monthly free educational community series. We have free events twice a month, every month, where we bring in experts that come, experts or founders that come and present, provide a workshop, or just have a real talk, a real conversation that's in the hopes to help entrepreneurs here in the Pittsburgh area, and also if you're joining us from somewhere else, and to help you, to help you work on your idea, build and grow your business. We really try to make sure that we curate all of the events and the experts that we bring in to make sure that you walk away learning something new, you walk away with something that you can apply towards your business, and that also, who knows, maybe you can connect with someone new while you're here. So without further ado, you're all here to hear from Emily and Dennis. So I wanted to say thank you very much to Emily and Dennis for taking some time out of their busy schedule to come in here, have a real talk with entrepreneurs, and then just have a lively conversation. Both Emily from Shine Registry and Dennis from First Sip Brew Box have been part of the Ascender incubator. So we're really happy to see our alumni here today. If you don't know about Shine Registry hosts profiles of businesses and their founders with wedding registry style lists of the stuff that they need to succeed professionally. Founders ask for support while they are starting their business and give their communities an opportunity to show that support in a meaningful and substantive way. First Sip Brew Box is a craft beer media company that uses a monthly subscription or a one-time gift box for the ultimate craft beer enthusiast as a vehicle to showcase craft breweries and highlight craft beer cities around the globe. So if you are a beer enthusiast, this is a place to be today. So today, our executive director, Nadine Nunez, will be leading the discussion and facilitating the questions that you have submitted whenever you registered for the event. So I'm gonna hand it over now to Nadili, who will be kicking off the Real Talk with Founders. Thank you.
All right, hello everyone. Welcome again. And we had over 30 questions submitted. So thank you for that. And we're excited to go over them. And I sprinkled some surprise ones in there for them. But let's all get to know each other a little bit. Before we get into those, I know we covered, your company, or Anya covered a little bit about your company, but can you say a little bit more and who you are? Feel free, and don't keep it short, I should say. So Emily, you want to go first?
How short? So I'm Emily. I'm the founder, CEO of Shine Registry. Anya did a great job of saying a little bit about who we are. I guess for a little more background, I'll do a short version of why we got started. I mean, we try to take best practices from crowdfunding as well as traditional wedding registries in order to support founders as they start and grow their businesses. What that looks like now is a little bit over 300 female founders who are on the site, who are asking from network connections to equipment costs. It's been a really interesting time for us the past few months, both because our revenue models have had to change a lot as a lot of folks have experienced a bit of tumult in in the way that the year has gone. But we've also seen an increased sense of urgency around supporting small businesses. And what me and the team have been doing kind of behind the scenes is getting ready to relaunch the site in the next few months. And so I'm happy to talk about any and all of that today, and excited to see some familiar faces here as well.
Great, thanks. All right, Dennis.
You said keep it short. Not my strong suit, but I'll do my best. So Dennis Guy, owner and CEO of First Sip Brew Box. We are a husband and wife duo. My wife and I run this company together. I'm a military veteran. She's a social worker. So we bring all of our different, backgrounds to the table. We started in 2016. We were on a road trip down to the Smoky Mountains, North Carolina, and we visited one of our first breweries. We absolutely fell in love with it. There was a dog running around, kids playing board games, husbands and wives getting off of work, enjoying a beer. We loved everything about it. And we told ourselves, all right, let's just start a brewery, because obviously that's all it takes is an idea, right? So we were on the way back up to Pittsburgh, PA, and we were just spitballing in the car. Hey, if we started a brewery, what would we call it? And we organically came up with First Sip, because you like something from the first sip. And that kind of evolved into, all right, what would it take to start a brewery? Oh, $500,000. All right, pivot, because we don't have that sitting around in the sock drawer. So we pivoted to wanting to send beer in the mail. At this time, that became legal. Another, punch in the face, because that was also, the LCB of PA basically said, their legal counsel, Dennis, how about you buy a restaurant or buy a warehouse and then you can buy a permit? I'm like, great, right back up to $500,000 again. So it became evident to us that if we wanted to follow our dreams and penetrate this industry, we had to do something that wasn't done before. And that's what we did, taking from the roots of what we originally came up with the business name First Sip. Since we're not sending alcohol out, the First Sip is the taste of the brewery, the taste of the brand. So we send out unique t-shirt collaborations. We partner with small mom and pop shops all over the United States that make things out of beer jelly, hot sauces, shampoos out of beer, coffee with malts and hops, all that really unique stuff. We put it all together. And so far we have sent brew boxes out to 5 different countries, over 300 cities, and we hit 48 states. We're missing North and South Dakota. If someone could please help us out there. I don't know if they have internet. If you have any friends, please shoot them a carrier pigeon or something. That's a little bit about what we do.
That's great. So you both have gotten customers since you started, but sometimes, especially when you're starting your business, that feels a million years away. So how did you gain that first paying customer?
Oh, that's a good question. Emily, did you want to jump on that
Sure.
one?
So for us, we're kind of, so we're a software, or we're a tech company, and our platform is free for users. But we do build in revenue from affiliates and also from marketing partners. And so our first affiliates came through just like reaching out to a lot of people, sending out a lot of cold emails, and figuring out who was running programs that were similar to what we had in mind and who would be open to working with us when we were really young and still growing. We really lucked out with who we ended up working with. Well, sort of. Our initial affiliate programs were all with co-working spaces in New York City. One of which got acquired by WeWork and then was quickly shut down, and another one of which isn't operating currently because of COVID. So we were really lucky initially in that like we were able to build out those partnerships and get a structure and something that we believe is scalable. We're just needing to pivot now away from co-working spaces. But to get back to your question about how to do it initially, I mean, it was a lot of cold emailing and a lot of like trying to talk to other startups that were doing similar things and learning from them as much as we could. And then being a little bit brave about reaching out to people and hoping that they didn't laugh at us when we did.
Dennis, before you answer, because I'm seeing you nod a lot, can you color in a little bit? Because sometimes you're sending all those emails. Maybe it's 50, maybe it's 10, maybe it's 100, right? And getting either a no reply or a no thank you, if you're lucky, can really be demoralizing. And so how do you go through that and tell yourself, I got a product that is going to, be successful. How do I continue? So can you color in a little bit from that perspective?
Absolutely. So number one, you have to know why you're starting that business and always have that in mind. For me, I always had that burning desire of entrepreneurship, and it was getting to the point in my life after various careers that it felt suffocating, continue to work for someone else, because it would just blow my mind. Hey, how about we try this? No. Well, let's think this way. No. So it got to a point where I either had to start something or just go insane. So just remember why you're starting it and have that positive mindset. And part of that is auditing your circle. So if you have those folks in your life, they could be people that are really close to you that you love, but if they're negative, I promise you that's going to heavily impact you when you're starting a business, because your life is going to be incredibly stressful. You're going to be working all hours of the night. Small plug, thank you, Ascender, for giving me a place to sleep sometimes whenever I'm doing that grind. But you have to audit that circle, surround yourself by positive thinking people, because you're going to need a lot of that positivity, especially when you're getting those no's. And we still get some of those no's today. Hey, why would I do this? Why would I, spend, X amount of dollars to include merch about my brand inside of your brew box when I could just give that to people around my neighborhood? And then you have to have the conversation around, brand building, that kind of stuff. But you still get those responses. But just remember why you started, what your goals are, and staying positive. That's
great. And I wonder, and I think the both of you have been very resourceful. You've taught yourselves so many skills. And I think, an entrepreneur, only because you like to cook doesn't mean you need to open a restaurant, or you can't, or know how to open a restaurant, right? And so how did the two of you, one, the importance of self-awareness, right? But two, what were some of the skills that you built, and what were some places you turned to build those skills?
Well, we were both a part of Ascender.
That is true.
So sometimes it was just the kitchen.
In addition to the kitchen, being around other entrepreneurs, that's fair. Yes, it wasn't a leading question. I promise. I would genuinely wanted you to list. But it sounds to me, when you're around other entrepreneurs, whether someone's in marketing or whatever, maybe you ask, well, how do you do this, or how do you do that? So being around others, that makes sense. Anything else?
Google. Honestly, I mean, you're going to get to a point, especially if you're a small operation, you can't hire a person. For example, we started our own web series, The Daily Sip, where we interview entrepreneurs in the craft beer industry from all over the country. And I cannot afford to hire someone to edit all these videos. And I had absolutely no idea how to do all this. But I buckled down, tons and tons of research on YouTube. And biggest thing is just getting started at it. Now, from a scalability point of view, you can't take on all those projects and continue to scale your company, but important aspects that could become pillars of your business, you need to understand it fundamentally. So whenever you do scale up and you do hire people for those positions, you know what the vision of good looks like, you know how to manage that person, you know what you're looking for. So you're not getting, for example, we wanted to hire a couple marketing agencies to really help us out early on. But they basically kept sounding like they just wanted to use our money to figure out what the right strategy is for us. And we didn't have a lot of that to begin with. So we had to buckle down and get marketing agency software, SEMrush, things like that, and learn from Tammy from Ascender, from a fundamental level, how to optimize our SEO, how to grow our business organically. And it turns out that kind of reshaped our business. And now if we ever go to hire someone for that position, we know exactly what we're looking for.
Great. Emily, did you want to add anything there?
No, I mean, I think that's all really solid advice. I mean, I wasn't kidding about the kitchen at Ascender. I mean, that's where I got that's where I learned a lot of things. I don't have a great poker face, so like people would often see me at my laptop looking frustrated and then check in, like, do you need help? I'd be like, yeah, help, please, with QuickBooks or whatever it was. I mean, Google's great. I think we live at a time where it's really so much easier to find out, but I think I'm definitely someone who needs like the added at times it needs like the added emotional support of like a peer community to also kind of help that learning process along as well. And so being a part of something like Ascender, before that we were a part of the incubator program at Carnegie Mellon. And I think like I'm in a unique situation where I'm often looking for the same resources that a lot of Shine Registry users are looking for too. And so any sort of resource mapping that also gets built into the ecosystems that you're a part of it's great. Yeah.
Great. And in order to scale and grow your business, you need to invest, right? Whether it's time or money. And when you're starting off, you don't want to spend on anything, right? Because it's just so limited. And so how do you, other than if you've exhausted, you know, you have to exhaust all the free possibilities, but how do you determine, or what questions do you ask yourself? Is this worth the money, the little money I'm investing in? How do you determine to spend that money on a person, a software, whatever it might be?
I would say the question you want to ask yourself before you spend any of your, you know, very, very slim resources early on, can I do this organically? And if the answer is yes, figure out, okay, what would it take to do it organically? And that's exactly what we did with, you know, growing our SEO of our company. We started, we focused on a resource called Haro, Help a Reporter Out. Which, you know, every single day, part of my daily rhythm would be they send out a morning, afternoon, and evening email blast of reporters all over the globe for various topics, looking for help on certain topics, whether you're a subject matter expert or a business in that industry. So I would look at that, and every single time I would see something that would be beneficial for us or something that we can speak about, you know, just whatever they're asking for, hit them out. And then you start building connections. So my recommendation would be, once when those connections are built, someone says, yes, Dennis, that sounds great. Can you talk more about this? Let's set up a time. So number one, you know, once when that gets published and you're an expert on that, put that on a list, save it, friend that reporter, make them a connection on LinkedIn. So whenever you're looking to do any press releases or anything in the future, you can reach out to that person. You have to build that network if you don't already have it already, and just put in that work. If you can't spend money on it, you have to spend time on it. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh,
Yeah, you got a thumbs up from Eric.
Yeah.
And me too. No, I agree with that completely. And I mean, I would just add that, like, when you are spending money, I think the decision to do so usually comes from a place of, like, I know I'm spending this so I can make more, or it's going to lead to the next milestone or whatever it might be. I'm a non-technical founder of a tech startup. Like, I've needed to spend money on hiring developers, but hiring those developers has unlocked, you know, this much progress on either the MVP of our site, now on relaunching the site. And, you know, that's happening in tandem with me talking to investors, with us talking to new partners, among other things. And so I think understanding what milestones you are going to be able to reach based on what activity becomes really important, and then just measuring that against, you know, your runway or your budget or whatever it might be.
Great. Can you share a little bit of maybe some of the challenge you're having with growing sales, either now or you have in the past, and what are some creative things you did to address that challenge? I'm actually very curious about the past, if possible, especially if you had a solution for it.
Ooh, these are also real meaty and hearty questions. I love it. I think this kind of ties back into the first question you asked too. You know, how do we get our first sale? Our first sale was definitely my father-in-law. So skipping past him, which you think once when you open up a business, you know, once you put stuff out there, people are all of a sudden going to find you and want exactly what you have, but that's not always the case. It's going to take work. I think the biggest thing that has helped us is, you know, once when we discovered the mantra of our business is the best friend for small business is another small business. We built our company on collaborations and relationships. So whenever early on we were, you know, talking with different attorneys and lawyers about, you know, so if someone with a lot of money comes along, what is going to prevent them from replacing our business? And it came down to, you know, our secret sauce is the relationships that we build. No matter how much money you have, it's not sustainable for you to buy those relationships. So what really helped us in the past is coming up with different collaborations that you can put together to where, you know, everyone involved wins. So the first time that we figured this out is, you know, so obviously pre-COVID, when we were doing, tons of beer festivals, getting our brand out there, early on, we were attending Kennywood's Beer Fest. We loved everything about it. How cool is it that you get to go ride rides and then they shut them down, of course, and then you can have beers and all that good fun stuff. And we attended that for years, and we never saw a lot of local brewery involvement. So, we took a shot. We reached out to Kennywood and said, hey, we want to help facilitate more local involvement. How about we make a Kennywood beer collaboration with a local brewery? We've never done this before. We had no idea what the hell we were doing. You always think of yourself as a business as being so small, but you never know how people perceive you on the outside. What Kennywood said was, you know what, Dennis, we've been looking to do this for years now. Can you please help us with this? I was like, what? Kennywood is at the historic amusement park for Pittsburgh wants our help? Awesome. So we put together a local collaboration with the local brewery, did the Log Jammer's Revenge since the Log Jammer got retired that year. But that pivot helped us realize that when we create those partnerships, because now Kennywood's sharing that on their platform of 500,000 people, and then they're seeing what we're doing. And so that's basically what I would say is figure out what your business is all about and double down on it. Ours was setting up those collaborations with other small businesses.
Great. What about you, Emily?
I think for us, it's something that, the more that we can talk to our users and figure out what's working and what we can improve on, a lot of that listening is leading to why we're relaunching the site with a bunch of new features, and it's informing a lot of decisions we're making on that end. And I think overall is making us something that more and more people want to be a part of. But I think that it takes a lot of listening. It takes a lot of really active reaching out and a lot of really self-awareness to ensure that you're being reflective of the community's wants and needs, and not just doing things without that information or purely informed by what you're excited about. And so, I think that's a continuous process for anyone who's building any sort of tech platform or any sort of product.
If you could guess or give a range of how many potential users or users you've spoken to help inform your product improvement, whether how to build it or to even do a 2.0, 3.0, 5.0, give me a range.
The very first version of our site was a bunch of Google Docs on a Squarespace, and that came out about 4 years ago. Before doing that, I had done at least 25 interviews and then continued to do interviews after we launched that, both with users and people who are using with people who are interested in creating profiles and also people who are fulfilling stuff. Done a lot of them. But I can tell you now it's never enough. If I could it's consistently the thing that I feel like I should be spending more time on.
Dennis, what about for you? How many people have you spoken to?
To
help
our business, the end consumer?
Yeah. To say this is something people want to pay for, or this people actually want to see this in the box instead. So
yeah, absolutely. So we've reached out. We have an automated system in place where 7 days after every brew box ships, we're automatically reaching out to every subscriber, seeing what they like about it, what they don't like about it, that type of stuff. So if I had to give you a range, I'd probably say maybe we've received back maybe 300 to 350, unique perspectives from craft beer enthusiasts around the country.
Fabulous.
Yeah, I should add that I was just talking about actual conversations that I was having. Our surveys we've done dozens of surveys and things like that too. Again, it's the one thing that I think you just can't skimp on when you're building.
When you're building out your product, it can look so many ways, right? The box can look a different way. The website can look a different way. It can have a different feel. And if anyone follows either Shine Registry or First Sip, there are very obvious personalities attached to them. And I'm curious, one, how aligned are they to you? But two, how did you determine or get to that personality? You're showing up memes, or you're showing up, you know, Dennis, you have that podcast, you're kind of being a bit more playful, and that's a little bit the direction, or if you know, if you're not ahead of the curve of where what people want to see from brands, that sort of you're relatable is what you are.
Right.
Did you know that from the start?
Oh, I don't think for us, we didn't really have a choice. Like, it got to the point where we're like, oh God, what content are we putting out there? Because it was important to us to be on as many platforms as we can so we can get in front of as many people as possible. As of right now, we're on 7 different platforms. It was a content strategy for us. We didn't know that early on, that, you know, for me to kind of be the face of the business. And then my wife, Sammy, she's the creative. She does all the photography, all the videography, all that stuff. We knew early on, she's like, no. When we went on our first podcast, she came on with me. And then after that, she was like, I hate this. I will never do this again. So we realized early on that I was like, oh, well, the only other employee, this guy. So had to jump on there. And that it's just something you learn about yourself. And we keep preaching self-awareness, but that's so incredibly important in entrepreneurship, because if you're not self-aware, you're going to end up spending a lot of time on tasks that are going to drain you so much of your energy. It can end up making you just want to give up on your idea altogether. But it helped me realize, oh, I enjoy this. I want to talk as much as I possibly can. And my wife wants me to talk as much as I can. So when I come home, I just go to sleep so she doesn't have to talk to me. But I think, so for our brand, it's just do it. Just do whatever feels comfortable for you in the medium that you enjoy. That could be writing. That could be audio only. That could be video. Figure out what makes sense for you that you're passionate about and go with it.
Yeah, I think that for Shine Registry, I mean, it's evolved a little bit. For a while, it was just me kind of shooting off memes or whatever it might be. And I think like I'm pretty mindful of the fact that like our more meaningful press engagement has come from like founder storytelling, I would say. And part of that is just like we have a really strong narrative around our mission that is engaging and it's exciting, and we're going to use that as much as we can to share our story and to get the word out there about what we're doing. But as far as I think what you're talking about, Nadili, with like broader communications and things like that, I mean, once more people started being involved in the Shine Registry team, I brought on a community manager earlier this summer. That's when we had to like sit down and actually talk about brand voice and all this other stuff and kind of formalize it a little bit, which I think has been, which was a really difficult process to go from, well, this feels right, to, okay, now I have like someone else and they also need to know what feels right and what doesn't feel right. So we put a lot of time in, I think, up front before sort of creating the space where like more than one person can start managing some of these accounts and growing them that way. But it was really worth it. It was a lot of like, is this adjective quite right? Like, are we friendly or are we, I don't know, what's another word for friendly? You get the idea.
Yeah.
Like, are we nice or are we friendly? And like, is that a difference? And I think just like talking that out, though a little bit tedious, was really, really useful for us.
Yeah, that makes sense. I do want to kind of pick on one part that you said about growing or thinking about that other person who now you're bringing into this vision, right? This, what you're building. How are you thinking about building your team in the future, moving forward?
So I think I mentioned I'm a non-technical founder. So I'm not doing the coding. I've been really, I'm just really excited by the way their team has grown, especially in the past 6 months, despite a lot of chaos that COVID threw our way. We now have 4 technical folks who are on the team, as well as, well, one person who's kind of a technical person, but is more in a product management role, and another person who we're hoping is going to come on soon and do a bit more of the community management work that I mentioned. Our other community manager left for grad school, but that's okay. I mean, I think part of it is thinking through what the greatest needs are at different stages. Like right now, our focus is on relaunching the site, and so our greatest needs are people who can fill very like pretty specific technical roles. And our next big milestone is just making sure that we're engaging the community and engaging partners, and so really thinking through like what that means for our team as both thinking through like what my strengths are and where my blind spots and where my weaknesses are as far as experience and skills, and like being open to being flexible about what our abilities are as far as like do we have the budget for like this and that, and like how do we get to a place where we do have the budget, and if that makes sense. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but it's been one of the most rewarding things about the past, like, well, anything, you know, there are a lot of rewarding things about about Shine Registry, but one of the most rewarding ones I think is definitely been able to like being able to like build out this team with people who are just really, really smart and a lot smarter than me, frankly.
That's great. And I'm paying attention to the time now. So I want to make sure I get this question in. And so thanks, Emily, you made me think of it. Being an entrepreneur, you both have a really great attitude towards it, but it's not easy, right? You don't always feel this excited, this happy, right? You've gone through some stuff. Is there anything you'd be willing to share where we always talk about the high highs and the low lows? Is there a low you'd be willing to share? And maybe what do you tell yourself, or how did you get out of it, or remind yourself of why you're doing this?
Ooh, yeah. No, you're definitely right. It's not, you know, you're not always flying on cloud nine. A lot of it is perspective. But one of my low lows, I would say, was probably, you know, 2018. You know, whenever my mom was actually diagnosed with cancer. That's back when I was still working full time as a sales executive for a petroleum company. And it got to the point where, you know, I had to leave that job, you know, going FMLA to take care of her. And one of the things that she always said, you know, follow your dreams. She always pushed me. And then that, you know, the company that I was with was like, hey, your FMLA, you know, it's up, you got to come back to work. I'm like, yeah, sorry, cancer doesn't follow any pre-described schedule. You know, I'm still taking care of her. They're like, well, you need to figure this out. I'm like, okay, that was an easy decision. I quit that job right then and there. And then, you know, from that point, you know, with her until she passed, it took something that monumental to make me realize I am not going to waste, you know, what time I have, because, you know, any of us could walk outside and get hit by a car or get into a vehicle accident or anything like that. It made me realize that, okay, I'm going to live the rest of my life exactly what I want to, how I want to. I want to have no regrets. So that super low kind of, you know, evolved, you know, as a phoenix, you know, burning, you know, rising out of the ashes to, you know, at that point, I never even thought of I could do First Sip Brew Box full time and not become homeless. Like I thought if I left my job, me and my wife would be sharing a box somewhere. And it's, you know, 2+ years later and we're not homeless. Everything's good. So it kind of evolved into a high.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yep.
I appreciate it. What about you, Emily?
I mean, yeah, there's definitely been ups and downs. I think the first month of this pandemic was really, really tough for us. We had prior to the pandemic starting, we had one of our biggest contracts in place for a marketing partnership that was entirely based on in-person events. All of those got canceled. The contract got trashed, and it like forced us to really reconsider a lot of what we were working on. I think being able to ride that out, we were really lucky that we had investors start working with us before the pandemic hit, so we had enough runway to like ride things out and figure out what things look like without relying on in-person events to generate revenue. We're still figuring it out, but we're in a much better place now for it. But I I mean, it's tough. I think there's a lot about entrepreneurship that gets compared to a roller coaster very often, either an emotional one or otherwise. It feels like the rest of the world has joined us on this roller coaster of uncertainty lately. But like you said, I mean, it's low lows, but it's extremely high highs. And like getting to work with the team that I get to work with is an incredible high. The amazing folks who are using our site is an incredible high. So there's a lot to be really excited about now too.
That's great. And so maybe thinking back when you first started, what was something that you wished you knew then that is so clear now?
I mean, I think this is like a little ironic for me to say, because so much of Shine Registry is built around the concept of asking for help. But I mean, we often build things that we need. I've learned a lot about like what it means to create space for folks to come in and to offer assistance where needed. I mean, I see Christine on here. Christine walked me through some of my like very early financial planning models. And it was really an exercise for me in recognizing like this is an area that I need to grow in order to be an effective CEO, in order to be an effective startup founder. And there are people either, you know, in my existing community or like adjacent to my existing community that are excited and willing to be a part of helping me get there. And so like Christine's a great example of that, as someone who has worked with a lot of Ascender companies. And there are other examples as well, but I think, you know, it's an ongoing, a lot of founders, you know, grapple with at times.
Yeah, true.
For me, I would say, well, jokingly, but a lot of truth is said in jest, is to not create a logo with 7 different colors, which we didn't know what the hell we were doing. You know, my wife, being the creative, she designed our first logo. And the first time we went to go get shirts made, they were going to be like $25 a piece at cost. We were like, oh yeah, we need to rethink this. And that led into, you know, a little bit of a rebrand. But secondly, very similar to Emily, like if we would have found out that first year that we got started that the best thing we can ever do is ask for help and put ourselves in a situation to be constantly learning with other people. Once when we started doing that, or, you know, through various programs around the city of Pittsburgh, everything started, you know, multiplying exponentially with what we were able to get done, because we were constantly meeting new people, learning new things like that. So you're not on an island all by yourself, contrary to how you might feel when you get started. Skip straight to, you know, where we were 2.5 years in, and actually ask for help and get out there and learn with others.
Great. And we've talked a lot about sort of that introspection, self-aware, and reflecting, but from a tangible perspective, what are some tools that you're using these days? So Dennis, you had mentioned Haro. What are things that you're using to manage your customers, to manage your finance? What would you recommend to the people attending here to use?
I would recommend Shine Registry for reaching out to your community and building your early list of supporters.
Facts.
And also, I mean, it changes all the time. Post-its are like the only consistent tool that I keep going back to. Yeah, I mean, I other things, I mean, everyone uses Slack, I think. I just learned how to use Gissues so I can talk to my developers in a more, like somewhat more effectively. But Post-its are like my tried and true. You can see.
Oh my God, those are Post-its. You are not kidding.
Nope.
For us, I would say for sure a software like SEMrush, especially if you're operating on the digital space, you have to look at your social media platforms analytically on a minimum a weekly basis. We look at our stuff every single day. But what SEMrush does, it allows me to see every single one of our social media platforms, engagement, audience growth size, trends. But more importantly, it allows us to compare it to our competition. Again, we have no marketing team. It's us becoming these subject matter experts. So we are looking at what some of the big people in the industry are doing in our industry, and with their, complex marketing teams. And we're looking at it and we're figuring out, does that make sense for us? Or should we use that strategy? Using their departments. I would say from a tangible perspective, do a competitive analysis. Why? From a social media platform perspective. So what we did, we sat down with a couple people and we figured out, all right, how many like companies to us are out there globally. And we came up with a number, was from what we can find that are putting themselves out there, 12 to 13. That's it. It's not a whole lot of people in our space trying to do what we're doing. Out of those 13, we found out 9 of them are sending beer out in the mail. So that means, only 3 or 4 were actually sending out merch in the mail. So we were able to dial in, and then out of those pieces of competitors, what platforms are they on? We found major gaps in the market. No one was on YouTube. We started a video series. No one was on Pinterest. We started, we're up to 65,000 monthly views now on Pinterest. So find those gaps in the market, know who your competitors are, and then fill those gaps in the market, because there's eyeballs there. There's money there. You just got to find it, and you got to put in the hustle and the work if you can't afford, a team of folks to do it for you.
And on that note, I see a question here about increasing trend of using videos for storytelling and how that's getting a lot more views than maybe previous ways of marketing. Do you agree that that's the way forward, or is it based on depending on your company?
100%. I personally believe videos are the way forward. Again, it all goes back to, you may be terrible on video. It might not be something that you personally enjoy. So maybe a different way for you to do it would be writing creative storytelling through animations, like Gary Vee does a lot on LinkedIn. Finding your thing. I personally believe video is the best because you can repurpose that video content and contextualize it for any platform: TikTok, LinkedIn, Instagram. You can do a long form video content that we do with our web series, and then you can cut pieces of that down, and you take that 1 hour interview and you now have 60 pieces of content that you can distribute on 7 different platforms throughout the month. That's why I'm pro video.
Pro video 2020, it seems.
That's it.
Emily, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think video also just gets a lot of accolade for being picked up by algorithms really well. It seems like that's what a lot of social platforms are prioritizing in people's feeds. So, I mean, that works. It works.
Yeah. We have another really great question here. I know that you're all exploring or use different sales channels to generate customers, but what would you say are maybe your top 2 kind of sales channels that have really made a ROI?
Our biggest focus right now is building up partnerships, and a lot of that is trying to work our network as much as possible to create the correct connections to build those out.
Is that via email, calls, cold calls? How are you doing it?
We're trying to lean as much on our network as possible, and so we're trying to get as many warm introductions as possible to folks who are in the decision-making seats for partnerships. But outside of that, yes, to cold emails. Not as much cold calling, although we should probably start. People are at home.
True. Dennis, what about you?
I would say you should do a little bit of everything, because you want to miss out. Early on, it was a lot of emailing and cold emailing. Now our biggest ROI is for sure social media, and not just your channels. Maximizing on influencers that are out there to help grow your brand. The biggest thing is we keep saying this word brand. You need to focus on building that brand, not so much on pulling a lever for sales. I know it's a long-term strategy, but we've been working hard on it this past year, and we've seen a lot. We quadrupled our website traffic growth from last year. But building that brand, maximizing social media and influencers, but then that next step is you have to look at the analytics of your website. You have to see where folks are coming from so you can know how to capture it. So it's not all about, just getting them to go to purchase the product, figure out where they're coming from. And we were able, to become kind of a ninja in that space. So for example, if someone's coming from LinkedIn, you can do a promo code specifically coming from a LinkedIn URL on your website to where when that pop-up comes up, it's thanks for visiting us from LinkedIn, kind of make it more of that personal. And we've seen higher close rates by doing that as well.
Nice. Smart. There's always the question about funding. Where have you found funding? Where should people look for funding?
I think that depends on what you are trying to build, right? Like it depends on, are you trying to go really big and like make a 10x return for somebody? And in that case, yeah, like go after VC. But if you're building a lifestyle business, like that's not going to be something that VCs are interested in. And actually, funny story, Shine Registry is hosting an event next week. Thank you for this very great transition piece. We're hosting an event next week on Founder, Funder, Fit. That's exactly on this topic because I think it's really hard to navigate if you don't have the vocabulary around what different types of investors are looking for and what different types of financing actually like means for your business.
People go to your website. Can they see the information for the event? Where should they go?
We have it posted on Eventbrite. I'll drop a link I'll drop a link in a minute. But yeah, as far as Shine Registry, I mean, we started off with grants from the incubator program at Carnegie Mellon, where I was in grad school and started, and then Ascender. Me and the co-founder put in some of our own money. We were able to bring on 2 angel investors at the end of last year, and have since continued. We were continuing fundraising before COVID started, and we're getting back into it now. But I mean, we've also gotten further financing from pitch competitions and things like that. But again, I mean, there isn't like a one size fits all because not every business is the same and not every founder is the same. And like, I think, you have to make a lot of decisions that are really specific to, the type of business you want to build and run, and also the type of life that you want to live. Like, do you want to start fundraising and then continue fundraising indefinitely? Because that is often the case, if you are going venture tracked.
Mm-hmm. People forget that part. What about you, Dennis?
So unpopular opinion, I would say if it is a possibility, you need to fund yourself through sales. That is the best thing that you can do. Obviously, not every single business is able to do that because you may need to raise funds to even have a product. But the reason why I say through sales, now we have gotten funding through the URA, Kiva, which have been, really good and, very useful for us. However, if you do not have the data points to fund it through sales, whatever you get the money on, you may invest in something, no matter how many strategy sessions you have, no matter how many, experts you have that tell you, what you should do. Real life may hit and you're like, oh crap, I just invested. We've done this. When we got, we keep it real talk with founders, when we did our URA loan, everything looked great. It was, we thought, okay, let's use these funds. We're going to be able to grow this much if we focus on, let's focus on inventory so we can fulfill orders. Yeah, no, terrible move. What we should have done in retrospect, looking back on it, was use that money straight up to actually hire a couple people for positions that we now realize that we need to fill, but we didn't know back then. So the reason why I say fund it through sales is because you're going to find those gaps without owing loans. You're going to find those gaps that you need to fill, that to spend money on.
If it makes you feel any better, Dennis, Ingrid said something along those lines, at least in particular, to Emily's point, depends on your product, but she was able to get some funding from companies who will be future customers and were willing to put some money up front to help her build out her product. So, all right, so we are at 4:59. Any parting words that you two want to provide to the entrepreneurs on this call and who will be watching this afterward?
Oh,
I'm
man.
dropping a bunch of links in the chat for folks to follow what we're doing, to find us online, on social media. I mean, like I said, we are gearing up to relaunch our site this fall, and I, would love for folks who are part of part of this event to be a part of our continued story and see what happens. Yeah.
Thank you.
I would say, so for everyone on this call, thanks for hanging out, up to this point. For all you future viewers out there that are seeing this at some time in the future, my parting words for you, hustle, grind. It's going to be tough. You're going to have those highs and lows as we talked about. But never assume that you're too small to do anything. Reach out to whoever you want. And I would say, make a list of the 10 companies or 10 people that you would love to interview or work with or partner with or do any of that stuff. Make that list of 10 people. Make sure, your stuff, looks pretty good. You got a decent website, like that kind of stuff. Then reach out to those 10 people. You'll be surprised what would happen. That's what helped us get into, Forbes magazine, Esquire, Bloomberg. Reach out to people. Like I said, from the outside looking in, you potential could be this big old company. People, when I've had folks come and meet us at Ascender, they're like, I knew you had this many people working for you. I was like, yeah, we're this little room right over here, but you never know how people perceive. So, be as big as you want to be.
Great. Thank you. Well, thank you all for coming. I'm going to pass it to Anya. But yeah, thank you too for coming here as well and being honest and speaking candidly about this experience.